Nasty fog again this morning. Can't hardly see across the street.
Why, 6 pints?
Oh, it's just so here. Found it on the doorstep.
Oh, Mrs. Bridges must have left it last night when she come in. Don't know why, we've got plenty in the larder.
It's that thick. There was this motor car in Belgrave Square, crawling, with a lad walking in front carrying a lamp. Proper pea super.
Mind how you go with Daisy?
Oh, she'll be all right. She can see in the dark with the blinkers on.
Mr. Hudson, I couldn't take Mrs. Bridges her morning tea.
Why not?
I couldn't get into her room. Her door's locked.
Did you knock?
Twice, but she didn't answer.
It seems that Mrs. Bridges has slept in this morning, Rose.
Was her day out yesterday?
I fail to see the connection.
I'll take these to the larder.
Are you sure her door was locked?
Oh, yes, Mr. Hudson. I tried ever so hard to open it. Maybe she didn't come back. I didn't hear her come in last night. Neither did I. Do you think something could have happened to her? I mean, you never know in the fog. Maybe someone slit her throat down one of them dark alleys, like Jack the Ripper.
Oh, not Mrs. Bridges, Doris. Jack the Ripper liked him a wee bit younger than that. More your age. Rose, you better go out and see. Maybe she's ill.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hudson. Give me that cup of tea and you get on with the range. It's cold now. If she gets cold tea, serve her right for oversleeping, lazy cat.
Now, Rose, that's enough of that.
Mrs. Bridges, 7 o'clock. Mrs. Bridges! Mr. Hudson.
What is it, Rose?
I couldn't rouse her. Look at these sounds coming from the room.
Oh, better just leave her then and get on. We'll try again in half an hour.
Well, I best get Doris to talk with upstairs breakfast then.
Yes, and take this down, if you please, Rose.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
Morning.
Morning, my dear. You're up bright and early.
There's rather a lot to do today. Anything startling in the paper?
Nothing much. Well, Curzon's got his way. He's seeking election to sit in the Lords among the Irish peers.
Without an acre of Irish land.
At least his voice will be heard at Westminster once again, after years in the wilderness. Never was a public servant so shamefully treated. When I think what that man did for India...
Just tell him so next week when he dines here.
I shall. I must be going soon. I'm seeing my tailor this morning.
Could you ring for Hudson, please? It's time for me to face Mrs. Bridges again.
Why do you say that?
Well, she's been so moody lately. We never can see eye to eye on the subject of desserts. She seems to have changed in the last few weeks.
Perhaps she's had a secret offer from someone outside.
Oh, no, that is possible. Mrs. Van Groben raved about our dinner party the other night. She asked if we had a French chef from Paris.
What did you say?
I said we had a very ordinary, rather temperamental widow from Bristol. She said she thought the dinner worthy of Rosa Lewis herself.
Praise indeed.
You rang, my lady.
Oh, yes, Hudson, send Mrs. Bridges up, would you?
Beg pardon, my lady, but I'm afraid it appears that Mrs. Bridges has slept in this morning. She hasn't been down for her breakfast yet.
Not done yet, but it's nearly 10 o'clock.
Quite, my lady.
Somebody better go up to her room and rouse her.
We've tried, sir. Rose has been up twice, but...
What?
She wasn't able to get in, sir. The door was locked.
Why is her door locked?
It was her day off yesterday, sir.
Well, what's that got to do with it? Are you suggesting she came home intoxicated or something?
Oh, no, sir.
You're sure she's in her room?
Oh, yes, my lady. There wasn't any answer, but Rose said she distinctly heard sounds coming from inside the room. I'll go and see to it at once, my lady.
It really is too bad. One gives her every consideration and she behaves like this.
I suppose that's the price one must pay for superb skill in the kitchen.
I particularly want her at her best next week.
To impress the Italian ambassador.
Dan Curzon. The crews are coming too. And F.E. Smith, he likes good food.
Ah, Mrs. Bridges. Her ladyship is waiting for you, Mrs. Bridges. In the morning room.
Really, what is that woman doing? It's gone 10 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness. I must go.
Lunching at your club?
Yes, with old George Chesterfield. I'll see you this evening. Mrs. Bridges. There you are. You'd better go in.
Yes, come in, Mrs. Bridges. I've been waiting for you. Did you have a pleasant day off yesterday?
Yes, my lady.
I understand from Hudson that you've had no breakfast.
Not hungry, my lady. It's no business of Hudson's.
Beg your pardon?
I said it's nothing to do with Hudson what time I come down of a morning.
I'm afraid I don't agree with you. Hudson is responsible for the smooth running of this house.
And I'm responsible for the meals, my lady.
I know you are, Mrs. Bridges, and I expect you to be punctual for meals in the servants' hall and to set a good example to the others. I also expect you to observe my rules, one of which is that I will not have the servants in this house locking their bedroom doors. I thought I made that quite clear. Why was your door locked this morning when Rose tried to rouse you? Well?
I've a right to my privacy, my lady, without the under-sevens poking and prying into my affairs. Everyone's against me. All talking and whispering behind my back, saying that was my fault Emily done herself in. I know what they're saying. They're all against me. I know I'm not wanted in this house, nor appreciated neither. So I best get him a notice and clear out, and that's all I have to say, thanking you, my lady.
Mrs. Bridges, come back here at once.
I'm giving him a notice, my lady.
No, Mrs. Bridges, you're doing nothing of the kind. Now, calm yourself and sit down. Come along now, sit down. Now then, what's the matter with you these days? Aren't you going to tell me?
I can't.
You haven't been yourself for some weeks, have you?
No, my lady.
Are you unwell?
I get these headaches, sharp pains through my head, my lady. Everything seems to be on top of me, and I can't stop crying. I lie awake thinking about that poor dead girl. If I scolded her sometimes, it was only to make her a better kitchen maid and to get on in service. I trained under a strict cook myself, my lady, at Southwold. You've got to be firm with them. And then, when Emily killed herself, it was like as if I lost my own daughter. It was like that.
Mrs. Bridges, would it surprise you to know that I too lie awake at night thinking about Emily? It was a terrible shock to all of us, but we must try and get over it.
I miss her in my kitchen. I miss that girl. It was a good girl.
Oh, now dry your tears and try not to think about it anymore.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been here such a long time, and I like to think that we're old friends. If these headaches continue, I'll have you examined by Dr. Foley.
Thank you, my lady. It's just that sometimes I feel...
What?
Lonely, my lady. You see, since Bridges was took 15 years ago now, come April, I've had no one. I mean, no one what belongs to me. I've got my friend in Victoria, but it's not the same. It's not like someone as belongs to you. Is it, my lady?
Mrs. Bridges, perhaps we should discuss the meals now, if you're quite ready.
Mrs. Bridges? Are you there, Mrs. Bridges? I'd come in and sweep. Mrs. Bridges?
Having something quite simple. Some fish, perhaps?
Mr. Hudson,
What is it, Alice?
I thought I ought to tell you.
What girl?
There's a funny sound coming from Mrs. Bridges' room.
There can be.
But there is, Mr. Hudson.
Mrs. Bridges happens to be in the morning room with her ladyship.
But I heard it. Thump, thump against the wall.
Oh, you're imagining things, girl.
Not Mr. Hudson, honest.
Well, why didn't you go in and see what it was?
Oh, the door was locked, Mr. Hudson.
Not again.
Could there be thieves in the house?
I have no idea, Alice. You better come with me. Wait here and I'll get the master key from my pantry.
Listen. Mrs. Bridges? That's daft. She wouldn't do anything like that. Door locked.
You come up with me, Alice.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
$1.
Yes, Mr.
If Mrs. Bridges comes back down here while we're upstairs, don't say anything about this. Do you understand?
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
Come on, Alice.
Well, there was a noise, Mr. Hudson. I swear there was. Listen. There it is. Can't you hear it, Mr. Hudson?
There is someone in there right enough. Just you stand clear, Alice.
Is there any danger?
You can never be sure. Just keep well out of the way. I'll unlock the door. Right now!
Very good, lady. Get out there. Oh, get out. Doris. How are you, Doris? Emily? Come and give Mrs. Bridges a hand. A hand, someone. I can't manage by myself.
Where's it come from, then?
That's what I'd like to know.
Some relative, I expect. Ask Mrs. Bridges to mind it for her while she's in the shop.
Well, why'd she lock the door then? Nobody would harm it, would they?
She could have brought it down here. Would have given it some milk.
You're quite right. That's because it's not been honestly come by. She's stolen that baby.
What's going to happen to her?
Will she be arrested? Well, Mr. Hudson's speaking to her ladyship now, so we'll soon know.
I'd best be getting back to the kitchen. She'll be needing me now. Lay out the saucepans then, shall I, Mrs. Bridges?
Oh, goodbye, baby. On the treetop, when the wind blows, cradle will drop. Down will fall, baby, cradle and go.
Thank you, Hudson. So I came as quick as I decently could. We were in the middle of lunch when the message came. Well, what's happened?
Mrs. Bridges isn't well, Richard. She's in rather serious trouble.
Trouble?
Last night, in the fog, on the way back from her day off, she took a baby from its perambulator outside a shop.
Took a baby?
Stole it from its parents.
I've been visiting my friend, Mrs. Gray. She used to be cook to Lady Wallingford. Retired now, sir. I've come across this pram outside a greengrocer's. Nobody minding it. Such a lovely baby laying there, smiling at me. I stopped, you see, so I touched its little hand. Well, I couldn't help but touch it. And when its tiny fingers curled round mine, I felt as if I had to pick it up, sir. Well, no harm after all, sir. I mean, there was nobody there. I knew it was wrong, sir, but I just couldn't help it. I only wanted to hold it to me, just for a minute, sir. But you see, it was cold and foggy, and so I took a shawl off of the pram and I wrapped the little mite up in it. Still nobody come out of the shop. And then I...
You what?
Started to walk with it, sir, in my arms, round the corner, down the street.
Which street? Well, where was this?
She doesn't remember, Richard.
And where's the child now?
Being cared for, sir, in the servants' hall.
Oh, my God. And nobody tried to stop you? Nobody saw you take it?
It was thick fog, sir. You could hardly see your hand in front of your face.
What on earth made you do a thing like that? Have you thought of the parents of the child? What they must be going through at this very moment? The terrible anxiety?
Richard, please.
Well, I'm sorry, but whether Mrs. Bridges acted on some sudden impulse or not, the fact remains that some wretched mother is searching all over London for a stolen baby, and that baby happens to be here in this house.
I'm sorry, lady, I couldn't help it. It just come out of me.
Mrs. Bridges, are you sure you can't remember which street you were in? Have you any idea of the shop? A greengrocer, you say?
Yes, it was a greengrocer. I know that, but I don't know what street. It was somewhere in Victoria near my friend. Somewhere in Pimlico.
She better go up to her room for the time being. If you remember after she's calmed down.
Go with her, Hudson, and then come back here.
Very good,
I'm sorry, my love.
Come along then, Mrs. Bridges. I'll see you upstairs to your room. You better have a wee lie down for a bit.
Of course, the police have got to be informed.
Richard, no.
How else are we to trace the parents?
I can't allow Mrs. Bridges to be carted off by the police. It would kill her. Besides, I have an important dinner party to give next week.
How can you think about dinner parties at a time like this?
Because I have to, Richard. I have to run this house and entertain important people for your sake. How can I do that without my cook? I can't find a new cook at a minute's notice.
Marjorie, I am trying to be very, very patient with you. A child has been stolen from its pram by Mrs. Bridges. The parents have got to be found at once and the child returned. That's all that matters.
But if we could find out where it came from, we could send it back. Well, with some sort of explanation.
Marjorie, you quite lost your reason. You're asking me to bypass the normal course of the law, to shield a person who is guilty of a criminal offence.
Mrs. Bridges is not a criminal, Richard. She's ill. She's been through a lot lately and she needs rest and care.
No doubt.
And it's our responsibility to look after our servants when they get into trouble.
There's trouble and trouble, and this is a bad case of child theft, and the police have got to be told whether you like it or not. And that's what we have to do, my dear.
Will there be any further instructions, sir?
No, Hudson.
Thank you, sir.
Hudson,
My lady.
I have an idea. Am I right in thinking that you have a friend in the police force?
Yes, my lady. Sergeant Mackay, around at Gerald Road.
I thought you had.
I think we ought to be very careful, Marjorie.
I shall be. Hudson, how would it be if you were to bump into Sergeant Mackay somewhere round by Gerald Road Police Station?
I understand perfectly, my lady.
Do you, Hudson?
Indeed, sir. I understand the need to trace the parents of the wee baby and return their property to them immediately, without involving the police. Put it that way, sir?
And you think you can?
If luck is on my side, sir. And provided, of course, that her ladyship or yourself will not be requiring me for the rest of the afternoon.
Oh, that's understood. Now, all we need is the address of the people in the strictest confidence, of course.
You can rely on me, sir, my lady.
Oh, and Hudson,
Sir.
not a word to the other servants for the time being.
Oh, naturally, sir. Rose? Rose, where are you, Rose? Ah, Rose.
Shh! Baby's asleep. We'd only just got him off, Mr. Hudson. The old devil is that wakeful.
I am going out, Rose, on a very important errand for the master.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
When Edward gets back from his afternoon off, inform him that he may have to deputise for me at dinner in case I'm not back in time.
Just to see if the fire's all right, my lady.
Oh, yes, perhaps another piece of coal, Rose. It's turned much colder.
Yes, my lady. But the fog's not quite so thick.
That's good. Hudson's still not back.
Not yet, my lady.
Oh, if that's Mr. Bellamy, tell him I'm in here, will you?
Yes, my lady. A ladyship in the morning room, sir.
Any news?
No, sir.
I gather Hudson's not back yet. No. Gone over 3 hours. What can have happened to him?
Well, his friend in the police may not have been there. He may have had to wait for him.
To come on duty? Most possibly.
The evening paper, sir.
Thank you, Rose.
Is there anything there about a stolen child?
Not that I can see.
Will there be anything else, my lady?
Yes, Rose, what time can we dine?
Oh, any time you wish, my lady. It's all ready. Will I tell Edward to ring the gong?
Yes, in 10 minutes. We won't change.
Very good, my lady. I just hope it tastes of something.
Sure it will, Rose. They're being absolutely splendid, Richard.
What's that, my dear?
The servants, I'm saying they're being simply marvellous. Rose and Doris have cooked the dinner, and Alice is busy looking after the baby.
That's very commendable, Rose. We're very grateful.
Oh, I'm sure we don't mind doing a bit extra, sir, if it's to help Mrs. Bridges. Will that be all, my lady?
Yes, thank you, Rose. No, they really are the most extraordinary people. I mean, that woman causes so many upsets downstairs with her moods and tantrums, yet they're all ready to cover up for her.
Domestic servants are more loyal by nature than politicians.
Ah, Hudson.
My lady.
You're worried about it.
I trust you'll pardon me for coming straight in as I am, sir, but...
soaking wet.
I'm very sorry, sir. It began to sleet a wee bit when I reached Eaton Square.
Well, what news?
I am able to report, sir, my lady, that I have ascertained the identity of the baby's parents.
Well done, then. And where they live?
Yes, sir. It seems that a baby was reported stolen from his perambulator outside the premises of Messrs. Walsh and Sons, the fruiterers in Lupus Street, my lady, between the hours of 5:30 and 6 p.m. last evening.
And the parents?
Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Webber, sir, of 96A Vauxhall Bridge Road. I also memorised the address, sir.
I wonder what sort of people.
Oh, middle class, my lady, but quite respectable, I understand.
We must order the motor at once.
I still don't like this, Marjorie. I think we ought to inform the police first.
You agreed?
Oh, very well. Tell Pierce to bring the motor around at once.
Very good, sir.
Yes, Hudson, and ask Rose to have the child well wrapped up, ready for travel, and brought up to the hall. Dinner will have to wait till we get back.
Very good, my lady.
How much will you offer these people as compensation?
We shall have to wait and see what their circumstances are.
Mrs. Webber, it's all right, Mrs. Webber. He's quite unharmed. Don't distress yourself. May we come in? We're not very tidy.
Is your husband at home, Mrs. Webber?
It's a miracle outside, Lily. Is that Johnny back? He's been found, has he? These people found him, did
This
they?
lady and gentleman, Arthur. They brought him back just a few minutes ago. Arthur, he's safe. He's all right.
Well, we're very grateful, I'm sure. Where was the child found?
Oh, let me introduce myself and explain. It's my card.
Oh, I see.
Mr. Webber, I must hasten to assure you neither my wife nor I were responsible for taking your child from its pram last evening. The fact is that we regretted very much a certain member of my domestic staff had an unfortunate lapse, a quite irrational longing to possess the child.
It seems to me, Bridges, that a large number of people have gone to a great deal of trouble to obtain your acquittal on this charge. Taking everything into consideration, I am prepared to accept the theft of Mrs. Webber's child as due to a momentary lapse of responsibility, brought on by severe mental strain and depression. You have a good position in service, a thoughtful employer, and a most loyal colleague in the butler, Mr. Hudson. So I'm going to bind you over for 3 months on good behaviour and hope that you will not have occasion to appear before me again.
Thank you, sir. I've never heard anything like it outside the House of Commons or the High Courts of Justice. Marshal Hall himself could not have done better.
But he can't really mean he wants to marry Mrs. Bridges.
That's what he said in court, and he's asked her. But I gather she wants to wait. Well, at least the gesture helped get her off.
Begging your pardon, my lady.
Hudson, what's all this I hear? Making a speech in court and offering to marry Mrs. Bridges?
I must apologise to you, my lady, and to the master for not asking your permission before offering my hand to Mrs. Bridges' marriage. The truth is that the idea only occurred to me last night in my pantry while I was pondering ways of helping Mrs. Bridges out of her troubles.
But has she accepted you? That's the point.
We discussed the matter in her cell at the police station, my lady, shortly before the hearing.
And what did she say?
She was very touched, my lady. She agreed that we should both, being unattached, as it were, reserve ourselves for each other in the not-too-distant future, whilst continuing, meanwhile, in your ladyship's service as before.
Well, that seems a very satisfactory arrangement. Where is Mrs. Bridges now?
Waiting outside in the hall, my lady. She would very much like to come in and say something to you, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course, Hudson. Send her in.
Thank you, my lady.
No, let it.
There, Mrs. Bridges. All over now.
I'm so ashamed, my lady. Can you ever forgive
I
me?
told you it's all over. The matter shall never be referred to in this house again.
You've all been so good to me.
Well, Mr. Bellamy, I've done nothing except return the child to its parents. It's Hudson you have to thank.
Yes, my lady.
Congratulations, Mrs. Bridges, on your exciting plans. Hudson, you must open a bottle of my Club 98 in the servants' hall and celebrate.
Thank you, sir. That's very good of you.
All I want to do now, my lady, is to get back into my kitchen and get on with my job.
Of course you do, Mrs. Bridges. Don't forget we've this important dinner party next Thursday. We'll discuss the menu in the morning. I want you to give us a really special dinner.
Excuse me, my lady, if I may intervene on this point.
You're not in court now, Hudson.
Oh, no, sir. It was just to say that Mrs. Bridges has been through a good deal of anxiety and distress lately, my lady. I was therefore planning for her to spend a few days with a sister of mine in Folkestone, if you would consider giving her some time off. Also, I've heard of an excellent cook who would be only too pleased to come in for the dinner party on Thursday evening.
You never said none of this to me, Mr. Hudson.
The idea was to surprise you with a wee holiday, Mrs. Bridges.
I'm not going on no wee holiday. Begging your pardon, my lady. Do you think I'm going off to Folkestone, leave my kitchen to some outside cook, when we've got important people to dinner? Well, very grateful for the thought, Mr. Hudson. Well...
You're not a husband yet, are you, Hudson?
So it would seem, sir.
No, he's not.
Well, if you really feel you can manage Thursday...
I'll be up in the morning, my lady, with some ideas for a main course. And this time, I won't be late.
Very well, Mrs. Bridges.
Excuse me, sir.
One Hudson.
Sir,
We're most grateful.
it was a pleasure, sir. My lady.
You know, when he was a young footman at Southwold, my mother always said he'd get on. The Scots always do. Well, I suppose luncheon will be a little late today. Can't be helped.